These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Do you think this team is up for, knows what it has to do in order to get the playoffs and is up for it?
Yeah, well, Joe, we have to go out and play good every week. It's nice to get some of these guys back. We have to be detailed with the things that we're doing. Just talking to the players about these next 4 games, how important they are, and try to get on a roll here.
Does Joe Schmidt have the greatest TV sports anchor voice in the history of TV sports anchor voice?
Yes.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you a question here. Joe Schmidt from Channel 5. That's right. I love it. Zimmer's like, no, we have zero.
I always love he always addresses Joe by his name. Well, Joe.
It's a respect.
Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mutual respect.
Yeah.
Dawn,
Childress would address Judd by his first name, mostly in a condescending way.
Well, Judd.
I don't think that I don't think Mike addresses I think he addresses Mark Craig by name, but I think among the reporters, I think that's it. And I think
he doesn't address
TV,
Matthew,
Joe Schmidt,
Courtney,
Joe Schmidt, and Don Mitchell, I belive.
He'll say Don's name.
Yep, he'll call him up. But besides that,
What about Jim Rich? Does he give Jim the nod?
I've never heard Jim get the nod.
Jim's been around for like 30 years.
This is a very exclusive club. This is a very, very small club. And
Mark Rosen, Mark Rosen?
I think Mark got the nod back in the day, but now Mark's not there. So yeah, and I think that's about it. I don't think Maxey gets the nod. I'm pretty sure
Pelissero shows up once in a while, right? When he's doing NFL Network stuff.
I think
will he get the Tom? Yeah, hey Tom.
I think he gets more behind the scenes though. Access.
Yeah.
He's a national guy.
Right.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Once all of you local peons clear out of the room.
When you get out of my way and I can start really I can get to the bottom of things. I'll be very happy.
Well, we've got some Viking stuff here, but first let's celebrate Declan Goff. Happy birthday!
Thank you,
our executive producer here.
Great
one step closer to the end of his 20s.
Someone left me a big old bottle of tequila. I figured out who it was.
That looks like a Ross Brendel purchase.
It wasn't though. It wasn't Ross Brendel. I concosted him, and he said, "Actually, I'm just a bad friend and didn't get you anything. And I don't expect anything on my birthday." I was like, "Ross, that was not necessary anyway." But someone from downstairs, I think Ryan Perpage, I believe, was the guy.
Oh, very nice.
Down at KSTP. Okay. He knows I like tequila, and he's seen me make many of good and bad decisions on tequila. So I'm shocked he left it at work, but hey, he's a bold guy, so I understand.
So later on today, you're going to take a shot of that. Is it tequila?
Yeah.
You're going to take a pull of that tequila for every wrong prediction that comes off the board in the accountability session.
That's totally fine with me.
All of us on both Purple Daily and
then
Mackey
no.
and Judd.
No, I mean, it'd be entertaining.
That would kill me.
That'll be fun. I think it'll get us a lot of clicks.
It'll be fun.
A lot of clicky clicks. All right, it's been a long time since we've done this, and it's been a long time since this guy has done this.
I want to mock! I want to mock!
Boys, we have 1.0 mock draft from Todd McShay. The Todd father is back. He had some health issues. He was not in good condition on TV a few months ago. I don't mean to laugh. Like, he clearly had some, I don't know if we figured out what it was, but he looked good on TV. He's back, and he is mocking on ESPN.com.
It's a beautiful thing. Fire up that music. Fire it up, man. Fire up the music.
Let's get it here. This is 1.0. It doesn't officially say 1.0. It just says NFL Mock Draft 2022, probably for SEO purposes, which is smart of them. So here it is. He's also predicting, educated guess here with 4 games left, where each team's going to finish. He's got the Lions finishing with the worst record, which seems very plausible, and they are drafting Aiden Hutchinson, stud defensive end from Michigan.
Stud.
He is a
stud.
Huge, big time stud.
He's ridiculous. He just forklifts offensive linemen with his bull rush. I won't go through all these because we got to scroll a little bit to get to the Vikings. But the Texans are taking a defensive end from Oregon, Kayvon Thibodeau. Offensive tackle Alabama, Evan Neal, going to Jacksonville to play for a coach to be determined, probably to protect Trevor Lawrence. Let's see here. Where's the first quarterback? Panthers, Giants. Wow,
It's the Steelers.
Wow.
It's the Steelers taking the Pitt kid.
Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
I'm still scrolling here. So
It's like
Steelers,
12.
It's at 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, small hands.
From Pitt. How small are they? Dante small?
Like Dante small?
We got small hands. I think they might be
Oh,
smaller. We got serious small
I heard
hands problems.
I heard McShay on Greeny yesterday morning explaining, and I think he said if you were to rank all the quarterbacks in this class against the quarterbacks that all went off the board, the top 5 in last year's draft, that Kenny Pickett would have been the 6th rated quarterback if you combined all the grades from last year's draft class. So it's a quarterback weaker draft. You know teams will still reach for him.
Yeah, so that means 3 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 12 anyways by the time this all shakes out. Because
Right.
this is what happens whenever you see these like late in the year, early in the year, before the combine. Remember, what's his name? I always forget his name. The BYU kid, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was like, maybe he'll fall to the mid-teens, and by the way, he probably should have, just based on how crappy he's looked with the Jets. But teams always get desperate. They always climb up over the top, and so Kenny Pickett will probably go higher than 12th, but they got him going to the Steelers. And then they have a little run on quarterbacks here. Matt Corral, Ole Miss quarterback, going 13 to the Washington football team.
Very intriguing prospect right there.
And that brings us to the Minnesota Vikings with the 15th overall pick.
So Vikings.
Taking
15.
Yet another cornerback, Ahmad Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati.
I want a mock.
Here's the write-up. It's hard to find another college corner who is trusted on an island in press man coverage as much as Sauce Gardner. Yes, his nickname is Sauce.
Oh, this is so football right now.
I love it.
Declan's right.
The 6'2", so he's a big dude, 6'2", 188 pounds, could stand to put a little weight on that frame there. 321 such snaps, meaning press man coverage, lead the nation by 61. And despite that big ask, Gardner has yet to allow more than 13 yards in a single game this year. So he is really, really good at Cincinnati. Minnesota's top 3 cornerbacks, Patrick Peterson, Bashad Breeland, and Mackenzie Alexander, are all on expiring contracts. And Gardner's speed, ball skills, and lockdown traits would help address a pass defense, allowing 9 yards per attempt this season. Your thoughts?
Actually, you know what? This time it makes perfect sense.
It does. It really does.
Like, I can't debate it because Sauce would bring in the type of cornerback that this team sorely lacks. And, like, if you look at things now, Mike Hughes, first-round pick gone. Jeff Gladney, first-round pick gone. I think Pat P's probably gone. Like, I think that was a bridge for a year. Dantzler, there's questions about. I don't personally think Chris Boyd is very good. Bashad Breeland is almost certainly gone. So this time, for all that we have beat and moaned about, it's another cornerback, you're taking another cornerback, I have a hard time objecting.
I know. Yeah, like they're just in a weird spot. I think there's some hope for Cam Dantzler to be a starting caliber guy for the next few years, but he's on the fence, and you're kind of at the mercy of Patrick Peterson's age and expiring contract. I think they try to bring Mackenzie Alexander back. I don't think Bashad Breeland is back next year, so they're gonna need to fill that spot. And then it kind of comes down to if you can clear cap space and you've got room for like a couple decent free agent ads and you got a first round pick. What will you target? I think I would rather them just – I'm with Boone on this one. Just go get an actual veteran guard. Just go get a guy that knows what he's doing, who's like 29 years old in free agency.
But it's so weird that this current executive staff and coaching staff has been absolutely petrified since Boone. Like, what did Boone do to them? What did Boone do to this team?
Side note on Boone, okay? Because I hear – first of all, the feedback we get on these Tuesday Purple Daily episodes is 95%. We love Boone. We want more Boone, and hopefully we can get you guys more Boone in 2022.
We want more Boone too.
It's a blast. Like he's got 4 kids at home, and so he's trying to juggle. Like he wants to do more.
He's a hockey coach,
media and stuff.
Great Christmas tree.
He's a dad, So we're trying to figure out how we can expand his role. But the 5% criticism is always, well, he was garbage. He was one of the biggest busts ever, and this and that. A couple things about Boone. In the prime of his career, in San Francisco, he was rated, according to PFF, as one of the top 7 or 8 guards in the entire league for like 2 or 3 years. He started and played in the Super Bowl. And even with the Vikings, his PFF grade was like 67 out of 100 in the year that he was a bust. He would literally be like their second best offensive lineman by that measurement in 2021. So just pump the brakes on. He was a bust. But I think you should probably look to sign a veteran. Here's a couple interesting things, though. The 2 picks after the Vikings, according to Todd McShay here, are the stud center from Iowa, Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah, he's intriguing.
And the Vikings need a center. They do, unless Garrett Bradbury has flipped a switch here, playing next to Mason Cole. Yep. And then at 17, maybe the most intriguing high upside quarterback in Malik Willis, the quarterback from Liberty. He's mobile. It's just I just see those guys coming off the board, and I'm like, ooh, a high upside mobile quarterback that can escape pressure. And I see a stud franchise center that, you know, most scouts think is a surefire plug and play guy week 1. So those are all things that the Vikings need. Cornerback's probably the least exciting of the bunch, just because of how many the Vikings
a really good one wouldn't be, though. Like that's the thing is, if you've got a guy that can play on an island, and he's called Sauce. I mean, and where have we heard that before? That is completely.
This town could really use a guy named Sauce. I feel like, yeah.
This town needs a sauce, a special type of sauce. It could be exciting, but this is again why I want complete change here, because I want a new administration to come in here and like look at this, because we can almost now, we're at such a point of prediction, right? Yeah, they'll probably take the cornerback, which, you know, we're not saying is terrible, but it's just a predictable thing. They probably wouldn't take the center because they're scared off now, because they took one in the first round, and he's been, for a first round pick, he's been a complete bust. Like, he might be, I don't know, but he's been a bust. And so that's where I would really like a GM and a coach who have a good read on quarterbacks to say, oh no, we're taking this guy. And then we're like, oh, let's wait and see. And then if he develops, we say, you were right. Like, just once, I'd like to feel like a move is made, and it goes beyond my scope of, oh, you were right. I might not have been. But this current staff, we know them so well and their tendencies.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that possibility exists. And flat out, I will say this again, I do not trust them to draft a quarterback.
I believe this would be, if they did draft a cornerback, this would be the 5th cornerback drafted in the first or second round since like 2012 for the Vikings. Right? Xavier Rhodes,
right?
Trey Waynes, Gladney, Hughes. Mackenzie Alexander was a second-round pick. So Alexander, Hughes, Gladney, Waynes. It would be the 6th.
Oh my God!
It'd be the 6th cornerback drafted in the first 2 rounds since 2012 if they did it. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So all right. I had this thought. You know, by the way, we did a deep dive last night on Purple Daily with Realistic Randy, the After Dark episode, on the new cap number coming out. So we know that the cap's going to be $208 million, up from $182 last year. So everyone's going to have an additional $26 million to spend in free agency. And we did kind of a breakdown of how can the Vikings, they're $10 million over the cap. How can they do a little cap cleaning, and what would you do with Kirk Cousins? So find that episode on Purple Daily. But another question that crossed my mind as I watched the Rams basically dismantle the Cardinals. That game got kind of weird late. The Cardinals were down by 2 touchdowns with like a minute to go, and they scored, and then they got the onside kick. But the Rams look really good right now again. I think it's the Rams. Packers are probably still number 1 with Tampa, but the Rams are like right up there as a competitor. And they haven't, Declan, you had the number. It's been like 7 years since they've drafted someone in the first round.
Jared Goff was the last player they took in the first round.
So they've built this team, and they've traded all of their first-round picks, and they've traded other picks to build what's sort of an all-star team. Now, they're not perfect, and they're still trying to figure out chemistry. But my question is, the Rams, in a win-now Super Bowl window the last 4 or 5 years, have said trading for established players is more important than picking in the first round, and that's how we're going to go about it. So, you know, they traded multiple first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey, for Matthew Stafford. They traded a second-round pick for Von Miller, and we'll see how that works out. They traded a second-round pick for Marcus Peters like 4 years ago. Didn't work out that great, but that was their. They also traded a first-round pick for Brandon Cooks and a third-round pick for Dante Fowler Jr., and like not all of these worked out perfectly, but they were looking for established high-upside players. And over the last few years, they are 27 games over 500 since 2017. They've won 3 playoff games, trip to the Super Bowl, on track to do some damage this season in the playoffs, even though the NFC is pretty loaded at the top. Meanwhile, the Vikings also in a win-now year. Remember, I gave you a 4-year window. That 4-year window for the Vikings started with a trip to the NFC Championship game, and then they brought Kirk Cousins in, right? I mean, they've been in a, despite their results, they've been in a win-now Super Bowl window for the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Yet they've drafted 38 players over those years, and they've spent first-round picks on busts like Garrett Bradbury, Jeff Gladney, and Laquan Treadwell. So, and by the way, the Vikings haven't been above 500 in 700 days. So, do you think the Vikings should have been trading more picks for established players like the Rams over the past few years? And should they look to do the same this offseason?
So, I think it's all based on timing. I don't agree with that philosophy across the board all the time. Right now, I would say no. Right now, if it was up to me, I would say just I don't care. Get out. I don't want you. That's if you get the 7th seed, give me a break. But going back to 2019, which is the year that Ramsey was traded from the Jaguars to the Rams for what included a package of 2 first-round picks, Collar and I back then on this show had lengthy discussions about make the trade, send two draft picks,
those picks would have been
first-round picks.
It would have been what? Well, not Bradbury. They drafted. No, it would have been Bradbury, or was it after the 19 draft? Can't remember.
I'd have to look. But I mean, my point at the time was you are in a window right now, and that team was a playoff team. That team won a playoff game, and you had the opportunity to get into a Zimmer defense, a shutdown corner. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a philosophy to say we are all, if we can make the trade, we're trading picks. I think that there's times that's flawed because it's not acknowledging the fact that your window's open and close. But in the case of Jalen Ramsey in 2019, no question in my mind, you should have made that trade because that trade would have instilled so many potential things, including a complete confidence of we're going for it. Like no more, Rick loves this 75 draft picks, but this year we're good. 18 was a complete bust, a disappointment of enormous magnitude. 19 is going to be different, and we are going to go in and be confident and add a corner who is going to fit in, because I'm pretty convinced that he would have exceeded or excelled, I should say, in this system. So yes, I think on that one, at the time, first guess, make the trade. Now still, mistake to not make that trade.
I would have done it 100% because, I mean, since 2015, when the Vikings selected Trey Waynes, they have not picked any higher than that since. So like in 2017, they didn't have a first-round pick because they traded for Sam Bradford. In 2018, they had the 30th overall pick. In 2019, they had the 18th overall pick. In 2020, they had 22 and 31. Last year with 23, they obviously traded down. But basically, they weren't picking perennially in the top 10. Like, they weren't going to be picking perennially in the top 10 where you are more likely to find an absolute stud to help your team right away. Where the Rams in 2016, essentially for the last 4 years, were a pretty bad team. But they have traded away those first-round picks with the idea that, hey, we're not going to even be picking in the top 15 for the next few years because our team is so damn good right now. So now, I mean, in hindsight, yes, I 100% would have done it in the hindsight of it. Going forward, I just don't know where the Vikings are going to be. Like, are you ever going to be able to be bad enough to be a top 10 pick in the next year or two? I don't think so, unless you literally gutted everything this season. But looking back on it, just from where they were picking, they probably should have mortgaged those first-round picks.
Yeah, so here's the problem. Because I do think like 38 draft picks over 3 years is excessive. Like, I feel like Rick is so obsessed with getting value, trading back, getting value, trading back, getting value. He did it in the first round last year, as opposed to maybe sticking your neck out a little bit more. Because when you trade back and get value, you always kind of avoid culpability, right? You can always say, well, I mean, it's a volume game. We're just looking to play the percentages, and so we're gonna cast a wide net and hope that instead of having 25 or 20 chances to hit on players, we have 38, so we have more lottery tickets, and you can kind of say, yeah, it's just kind of a crapshoot, and that's our way of playing it. The teams and the GMs that stick their neck out and trade up in the draft or trade their picks for established players, it's a pretty black and white judgment. Did it work, right? And sometimes it doesn't, and guys get fired, and that's the risk. And I feel like Rick has played that game brilliantly over 15 years. But where it's tough to trade first-round picks for established players is you need cap space for guys like Jalen Ramsey. You need cap space for guys like Matthew Stafford, for instance, if you're going from, let's say you're going from a rookie scale contract to a Matthew Stafford. But the Rams have Matthew Stafford under contract for a $20 million cap hit this year, which is $12 million less than Cousins, and for $23 million next year, which is $23 million, $22 million less than Cousins. So when they've got a quarterback that's much lower on the cap space or on the cap hit rankings, which frees them up to acquire established players that also make money. The Vikings don't have that luxury. So until and unless they can get that cap number down for Cousins into a more Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady range, which is about half of what Cousins is going into next year, then I think they're better off trying to hit on first-round picks because you get those guys under team control for low salaries for 4 or 5 years. And the problem is they've whiffed on so many of them. Now, they've hit on some later-round picks, like they hit on Dalvin Cook was a second-round pick, right? Like, I'm not saying they've whiffed on all drafts, but imagine this team if Garrett Bradbury had panned out as a franchise stud center, how much better the offensive line would be. If Jeff Gladney was a lockdown cornerback that you could just have on your team for the next 6 or 7 years. But because they've whiffed on these first-round picks, that's why they're struggling to get back to 500 each of the last couple of years.
And I think the flaw with Rick is this. I don't think Rick understands what Rick is doing. He waffles terribly. Like, when you sign Kirk, you're going for it. Like, you are all in. Like, you got to find ways to clear cap room. You're going for a Super Bowl. You are not Kirk Cousins, and I think Rick would debate this, but he's wrong. Kirk Cousins is not signed to be like, he's going to be our quarterback for the next 10 years, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, he's a 3 to 5 year mercenary.
He's a mercenary, exactly right. But when you go that route, and this is what the Rams are doing. So the Rams, right or wrong, understand their mission statement. The Vikings don't. Like, Rick signs Kirk, but then Rick is like, I also want to build a team.
And Zimmer likes defense, so let's just kind of put Oli Udoh in at right guard. It's like
you're serving so many masters, including the fact that you don't get yourself what you're doing. Because the day that you sign Kirk, God bless you. You were all in. Yeah. It's time to go. It's not time to be like, and hold on a second, next couple drafts, I'm going to have 38 draft picks. No, that's not where. So I that's why I want to change here, because I don't think Rick has, for all that Rick talks about being prepared and all the work that Rick does, I don't think Rick has a clear understanding of what he's doing. I think he waffles terribly.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. All right. And I take plenty of issue with Kirk as a leader. Like, I hate the fact that he is, I just work here, guy. Listen, I just run the plays that are called, and I just, everything, it's always the offensive line's fault. Not that he blames the line, but he definitely makes side comments about how, like, well, sometimes it's about how long we have to throw, and, like, all those things piss me off about Kirk. But in fairness to Kirk, why would you sign him and then re-sign him, and then in year 4, Oli Udoh is an experimental tackle that you're moving to guard, and, like, you have an immobile quarterback that needs the up the middle part especially has to be sound. Like, he can't drop back and just have up the middle pressure. It's impossible for him to avoid it. Yeah. So if you go back again, in hindsight's 2020, but there's a lot of first guessing here on this show. You got limited cap space, you got limited resources, so you got a first round pick, and you got room to maybe get a couple impact free agents last year. And they went all in on defense in free agency and kind of hedged in the draft, right? They said, okay, let's trade back. We'll trade back and kind of see if Darisaw is still there, and then we'll find maybe a successor at quarterback in the 3rd round. But it was a full hedge in the draft for the Vikings. wouldn't they have been better off? They certainly wouldn't be a lot worse off defensively if they would have said, "Listen, Mike, we're not going to spend free agency money on defense. We'll get a couple depth guys, but honestly, dude, you're going to have to figure it out. We're going to make a full run at an established offensive lineman, either via trade or in free agency. There was like 2 or 3 out there. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give Kirk the protection up. We're either going to go get Corey Linsley as a center and just admit that Bradbury was a bust, or we're going to make a big push to spend $17 million on a Joe Tooney. We're going to go and fortify the offensive line via free agency so that our pocket passer, who's great when he has a clean pocket, can operate the way that he should be operating. And you have to fix the defense and patchwork it. It's not going to be perfect. It's probably going to be the least talented defense you've ever had, but figure it out. They currently rank bottom 5 or bottom 10 in most key defensive stats because of all the injuries, and like Mike Zimmer's scheme maybe is further behind the times than it was 5 years ago. Would they really be that much worse off defensively if they had just said, all right, we're going to devote resources to the offense? And where would the offense be if Kirk was getting better protection this season, right?
Yeah.
And again, like to your point, identity crisis. We got this quarterback.
Yes.
But Mike likes defense. And so we'll just kind of leave the offensive line rickety.
And so Mike complains. So Mike says that defense in 2020 was awful. That will never happen again, Rick. You're going to get me, guys. And Rick, the problem is Rick's torn there, but Rick's also torn on the identity of what Rick wants to do. And that's the frustrating thing to watch, because he's got Kirk. Okay, let's build. Let's go. No, I'm going to have a bunch of draft picks. I'm going to trade. I mean, the thing about that we probably don't discuss enough as Rick stockpiles draft picks. You should see all the draft picks. They're gold. Which Mike took a shot at Rick in training camp by saying he treats them like they're gold.
It's like the Twins hoard prospects, right?
Every time you trade backwards, you're passing on a better player. Like potentially. Like if you're bored, they always say our board, right? Our board. Every time you trade down, you're passing on a player who could probably have a chance to help you so that you can get 3 more picks in the 5th round. So yeah,
but you can say you won the trade because you got value for the trade. You can
I
whether the player
that.
pans out or not, you can be like, yeah, but well, look, I don't know. We gave them 38 players. They got to develop these players.
At some point in time, if you're the Wilfs, don't you have to look around and say, are we really getting what we thought? Because I think the answer is no. I don't think it's close. Look, in this league, you can be competitive annually. Teams show that. But the windows to actually win a championship close constantly, right? They close constantly. And so when they're open, to go back to the start of this discussion about what the Rams do, when they're open, I think that you need to pursue them to their fullest. Not be like, well, we can't make that trade. Okay, if they had gone and improved themselves in 2019, and you can get by San Fran, now I believe you're in the conference championship game, right? That's your window right there. That was the whole Kirk, because Phil, we talked about this and continue to. The defense was going to decline. Like there was no question about that. Guys age, guys get hurt. You weren't going to take this core group and be like, in 2021, they're going to be just as good as they were in 2019. No, that's not how football works. It's never how it's worked. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I am at a breaking point now with the current administration for the Vikings, as far as what I think is a fundamental lack of understanding of what their role is. Sorry,
as Rick cackles with.
Yeah, he's got the money, man.
3 buttons
Not me.
Unbuttoned on his shirt.
I'm just some schlep
like deep V, like I got the deep V. That's what Rick does with his, button up. I got the deep V. It's birthday. I'm rocking the deep V today. Okay, I wanted
deep V. The glasses.
It's the last lap around the 20s. Okay, I got to go out with a bang here before I hit 30 this time next year. Okay, so one last craziness in a year.
Yeah, then you have to be an adult in a year.
Oh, I can't
crazy.
Just drink,
do your
all
own
the
laundry
time
and stuff.
do my laundry and cook and
30's not that old. I wouldn't worry.
Take care of my body and all that stuff.
30, you don't have to take care of yourself. Overrated.
We are coming down the stretch here. Write that down. We got about 2 weeks left in the Write That Down calendar year.
One of the all-time great chokes. One of the all-time. I'm not going to hide.
Still in it.
No,
I'm not going to hide from it.
I had a rough week.
Well, sure, but I'm saying, Dex, I was up by how much?
It doesn't matter how much you. It
Doesn't
doesn't.
matter.
How do you close? Close the season.
I
strong.
know, but I'm dumping on myself.
The Twins blew
you're
like
looking back
I've looked
in the
at the
past.
film. No, I've looked at the film. And I am very disappointed. There will
I don't
want to
be. I don't want to be the 2019 Indians and brag that I broke a 13-game division lead in August and then just again to fall back on my face. Okay, I'm not going to be them.
There will be changes.
Okay. Got it.
January, when Write That Down ends, there will be changes. I'm going to tell you that right now.
All right. Well, we'll get to the accountability session and our predictions here in just a second. Mackey and Judd.